Beyond reasonable doubt, Shape, aka Michael Myers, is the worst killer in Dead by Daylight, and if you've ever played just a single match with him, you can tell why. Now I made the statement that Michael Myers is a weak killer, but people may be asking what led me to this conclusion, and that is that he lacks the most important thing a killer needs to be good: pressure. Now let me explain this concept to those who may be slightly newer to a game. Pressure is a combination of good start and good speed. For example, Nurse and Blight are the best kills in the game due to how good their mobility is, and that just not because they can traverse map quickly, it's also due to how they can dodge mechanics that may prolong chases, such as pallets and windows. Adding on to this, if you take the Blight's add-ons for example, you can see that he has the most powerful add-on in the game. Everyone knows it, everyone hates it, and everyone wants it nerfed. It is the Alchemist Ring, but for those who may not know what it does, it has a quite simple effect. When you hit a survivor with a rush, you get all your tokens back. This is powerful as it completely ignores the cooldown which kills half of their powers, which makes him even better than a nurse with his add-on equipped. Imagine a nurse with infinite blinks. That's what it's like versing a Alchemist Ring Blight. Scary, yeah? And if you're wondering where slowdown comes into this, well, look no further than the healing speeds and the deadlock sitting in their 4th perk slot. Now, let's look at Myers in comparison. In tier 1 he has a pitiful 105% or 4.2 movement speed, making him the slowest base movement speed in the game, if you don't include Nurse, because she can obviously teleport. Now the problem with this is that at the start of a game is when you want to start building pressure by snowballing. That is why good killers bring perks such as Lethal Pursuer, as they know that saving a couple of seconds at the start of a game can be the difference between winning or losing. But Myers follows the exact opposite philosophy and is the slowest at the start of a game. But I digress. The least a relieving factor is that Myers reaches a normal speed of 4.6 when he's in tier 2 or 3, which just makes him like any old killer. Ironically though, the previous weakest killer in the game, which of course was Trapper, actually now receives a haste status effect when he sets traps to ensure that he has an early game setup, whereas the Shape hasn't received any actual buff since update 3.3.1, which is back in October of 2019. To make matters worse, the Shape's power is one which has to be built up over time. It cannot be simply used like you could use Nurses, Blights, or even Trappers. The power is called Evil Within and has 3 stages to it, which each share one core mechanic: the dreaded Stalk Meter. If you've played Ghostface or Myers, you would know how frustrating it is to stand still and hold the stalk button down until the survivor spots you and runs away. But of course you cannot chase after them, as while stalking you have a reduced movement speed. And when I say reduced, I mean slower than the survivor, with every hidden status effect stacked on top of each other. And also, I should not forget to mention that as Myers you can only stalk one survivor at a time. But let's just say you were lucky enough to get the stalk off, so now you made it to tier 2. Well now congratulations, you're walking at base movement speed and have a 16 meter terror radius. Okay, that's bad, but what if you grind your way to tier 3? Well, there's actually a pretty cool payoff. If you manage to do this, you get a super long lunge attack, and in addition to this, all survivors become exposed, but there of course is 3 negatives, because of course Myers can't have something nice. The first of which is that the effect is timed, so you only have 60 seconds to use tier 3 until you revert back to tier 2, in which you have to charge up your stalk again. The second negative is a 32 meter terror radius in which he gains when he enters tier 3, so that the survivors know when he's close, so they can just run and hide for a whole minute. And finally, the last negative is a map-wide audio effect when he enters tier 3, ensuring that you see no survivors within those 60 seconds. So the game plan is to essentially try to cram all your pressure into that 60 seconds whilst you have no slowdown or anything to snowball pressure outside of tier 3. Instead of me trying to suggest a rework or a buff, I'm going to instead recommend perks and add-ons to use for the best possible results. So let's first consider Michael Myers' unique perks. I'll order these from worst to best. So first we have Dying Light, which literally just buffs the obsession, so I recommend avoiding this perk at all costs, as the slowdown is mostly useless since the obsession can just make up for lost gen repair speed. The next perk is Play With Your Food, which is just a meme perk that gives you a small speed boost when you cut chase with your obsession, but of course you lose the speed when you perform an attack. And to be honest, this perk is technically playable on Myers if you just focus on stalking, then you will naturally gain stacks as the game progresses, but you'll probably lose them all once you hit tier 3. Myers' final perk, and probably one of the best in the game, is Save the Best for Last. All this perk does is reduce the weapon wipe animation for each stack it gets, and you get stacks for hitting non-obsession and lose them for hitting the obsession, so it's pretty straightforward and powerful. But I don't recommend using it on Myers as he's more of a beggar than a chooser, and you can't really afford to not hit the obsession once you hit tier 3, as you want the game to end as quick as possible. Now the perks I specifically recommend will be low power but low criteria slowdown speed and information perks to ensure you make the most of his ability. The first perk I recommend is Modern Abuse, which lowers your terror radius and increases your FOV out of chase. The reason I recommend this perk is because you'll spend most of your time in tier 2, which already has a small terror radius. So if you make it even smaller, it opens you up to new mind games and allows you to get closer to Stalk, thus building up your Stalk meter faster. Plus the FOV increase just looks nice. The second perk I recommend is Infectious Fright. Infectious Fright reveals the locations of all survivors within your terror radius once you down a survivor, so you can make use of the bigger terror radius. And of course tier 3, as now no survivors will be able to hide it out. Plus a perk makes survivors scream, which cancels any action they are performing. So it will make snowballing easier as long as you're not afraid to slug. The next set of perks I recommend is the general slowdown perks that don't require you to do much for their activation. These perks are ones such as No Way Out and Deadlock. Now these perks are useful as they auto-activate, as Deadlock activates on gen completion, blocking the next highest progress gen, which will be sure to slow down survivors, and No Way Out activates on hooks, which will be doing anyway, and even if you don't hook anyone, No Way Out still has guaranteed value of blocking the exit gates for a small portion of time. The reason I recommend these slowdown perks instead of say Pop Goes the Weasel is because Pop Goes the Weasel requires you to kick a gen, which wastes your precious time, which could be used stalking, whereas No Way Out and Deadlock auto trigger, saving you more time, even though effects are not as potent. Using that same reasoning, I recommend choosing perks such as Brutal Strength, Fire Up, Superior Anatomy, and Bamboozle, as it just speed them up even more without you having to fulfill any condition, making them great choices. My final perk is one used by professional Myers players and is a personal favorite, and that is Coup de Grace. This perk increases your lunges by 80% by consuming a stack of a perk, and the way you obtain stacks is by generator completions, in which it gives 2 stacks. So a perk is high reward for 0 risk, as long as you're not wasting your stacks in tier 1 or 2. Now time to look at the add-ons we should bring. We'll start with a low rarity stuff and work our way up. I recommend using add-ons such as Memorial Flower and J. Myers Memorial, as they increase your stalking rate, allowing you to hit tier 3 quicker, which will save you a hefty chunk of time. I would also recommend using add-ons such as Blonde Hair and Lock of Hair to increase time spent in tier 3, even though you'll need to stalk for longer. But of course, if you bring faster stalk rate add-ons, then you can mediate this downside. I don't recommend using any stalk movement speed add-ons or any miscellaneous yellow, green and brown add-ons, as they are so niche and never practical. If we look at the purple add-ons, the Scratch and Vanity Mirror Maya builds are quite gimmicky and not recommended if you actually want to win, but they're great fun, especially if you want to scare your friends. Next, we have the Tombstone add-ons, which personally, I don't recommend, as I don't find much of a purpose in them, as they increase the time to get to tier 3, but don't actually help you in tier 3. Sure, Vamori looks cool, but it wastes valuable time and pressure when instead you could be slugging and snowballing for a better result. And finally, we have Maya's most broken add-on, and that is the Fragrant Tuft of Hair. The beauty of this add-on is that you no longer have to cram all your pressure in 60 seconds. The survivors are going to have to be completing objectives to finish the game, but since you can instant down them, it puts them in a lot of pressure, leading you to get easy wins. So best add-on combination in my opinion will be the Tuft of Hair and the J. Myers Memorial, so you can get to tier 3 as soon as possible and stay that way as you mercilessly slaughter these survivors. So that will conclude today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, hit the subscribe button. I'll be making more videos of this sort. And if there's any other DBD related topic you would like for me to talk about, drop it in the comment section below. Best of luck in your next trial. See ya.